about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love.
Good morning. Welcome back to Unsolved No More. So, just got out of the hot tub this morning because my bones and joints ache so much as I approach 50 years old. Unbelievable I made it that far, but I digress. My point is, I was thinking, what could I do a video about in regards to past cases? And you know how I like to create analogies and link cases together because there's always usually something in common, whether you talk about I don't know, the Jennifer Hill case with Joanne Dunham, where there's something there that correlates between the two of them. And you can always learn from each case, take something from each case. And so it got me thinking. This latest case that I worked on, the Brenda Condon case, as I've said, to me, it wasn't very difficult to figure out. I mean, it was difficult, but I've had much tougher cases than that. And then it gets you to thinking, well, why wasn't the case solved? If you think it wasn't so difficult. And the answer to that is very difficult to answer because it all depends on certain things. The person who's in charge of the case. Are they capable of it? Can their mind put together things? Just because you're a patrol cop that's got promoted to detective, it doesn't mean that you have the ability to see things. Okay? That's why I got so upset about, and I still get upset about, seniority. Seniority has its place, but I was always very against, you have to have 10 years to be a detective. So you have to be 10 years on patrol before you can be a detective. And I thought that was asinine because I've seen detectives who couldn't invest their way out of a shit house. But I've seen others that were not detectives, that were patrol officers that could. They were, very well adapted to do so. So the system was broken there. So sometimes that's why cases aren't solved. Sometimes there's just no evidence. But I think one of the most important aspects of solving a cold case is that you have to be able to meticulously pick apart things without going to crazy town. And by that, I mean, okay, let's not link, this is not fact. I'm just making this up here. Let's say Brenda lived at 66 Main Street, okay? And then all of a sudden you find a suspect. In your eyes, you think he's a suspect because he was at the bar that night. And all of a sudden he lives at 33 East Willow Street. And all of a sudden now you're going to make a connection. 33. That's half of 66. So he must have done it because that's a correlation. No, that's going to crazy town. Okay? I see that in Zodiac case a lot where people do that. You're making things fit your narrative. And you can't do that. You have to let the evidence, if there's any there, speak to you. Such as in the Brenda Condon case, the single beer bottle. Now that was overlooked, I think, for 33 years. Now that alone is not going to solve the case for you. But it paints and tells you a story. And then you couple that, oh wait, there was a guy that was there before that night that was hitting on her. Oh, he had done that a couple weeks previous to another bartender in the area. Oh, there's a sketch of, see, all that put together, then that's all indirect evidence. It's all circumstantial, but it paints the picture and you can solve the case. Now, whether he gets arrested or not, hey, that's not up to me. That's up to the district attorney and such. It's my job to solve the case. So what I thought I would do today is talk about 5 cases where there was something in common. And I put this question out to my subscribers on Facebook. If you are not aware of that, there's a subscriber hub on Facebook where I interact with the subscribers and give them questions, post pictures of myself, stuff that I wouldn't do on a public forum. Anyhow, I put this question out to them. I gave them 5 cases and said, what do they have in common? Okay. And those cases were, JonBenét Ramsey, Brenda Condon, that we just talked about. Let me look here so I don't forget. Ellen Greenberg, Joanne Dunham, and Cheri Jo Bates. Now there's more, but I just selected those 5. One is in common. There's more than one thing in common, but I'm looking for one particular answer. Okay? Could they all have been sexually motivated crimes? Let me look. No, I don't think so. No, so that wouldn't be the answer. The answer is there was something in that case that I feel, now this is just my opinion, that was overlooked that leads you down a certain path. Okay? So let's go through each one by one and see what those things are. Ellen Greenberg. Now, these are all cases that I have done a video on and assessed the scene. I guess the official verdict is that she committed suicide, right? But with stab wounds to the back of her head, back of her neck and stuff. But that alone raises questions, right? But to me, it's something else. I saw something. And that was that the knife that was used from a butcher block in the house, the butcher block was knocked over. Although the police said, much like in Brenda Condon, that there wasn't a struggle. Well, how does a butcher block get knocked over then if there wasn't a struggle? If she is doing this to herself, why would a butcher block be knocked over in the kitchen where the knife was from? People miss that. So I think that's one of my abilities. I get these compliments a lot. You're brilliant, things of that nature, which I don't necessarily agree with. When people say you're the best detective in America. Well, I don't agree with that at all. But I will say that there's some things that I can do well. One is like Albert Einstein said, it's not that I'm so brilliant, I just stick with the problem longer. That's number 1. Number 2 is being able to see something that people miss. Or they do see it, but they can't incorporate it into why it's important. And I think that's one of my gifts that I am able to do. Much like the butcher block being knocked over. The reason that's knocked over is because there is a struggle and somebody is grabbing a knife in haste. Okay? It's not her, or it could have been her, but it's not to use on herself. It's either to defend herself or the offender grabbed it, knocked the butcher block over. The same in the Brenda Condon case. Being able to spot that single beer bottle with this is very important, conjunction with the money being beside her or beside the bottle. With the register already being rung up. That just tells you that's a tip. right? That's the tip to the bartender. That's the single bottle from a single offender sitting there waiting for her to get off work. And then from that, you can deduce, well, it's not the owner. He's not going to tip her. Number two, it ain't the boyfriend. He's not going to tip her. It's a customer, okay? So it's being able to not only see those things, but then put them together and deduce, and what does it tell you? Now, some people will disagree. People disagree with me all the time. There's nothing that I can do about that. But I think the majority, especially in the Brenda Condon case, I was able to explain it so you could visualize it. And that's always the trouble for me, is being able to explain to an audience what I see, okay, and how it makes sense to me. And hopefully I did that okay in the Brenda Condon case. But let's go through these other ones. JonBenét Ramsey, the pineapple, the bowl of pineapple. To me, that's such a huge clue. Now, people will write idiotic comments, and say, well, you're stupid. This has nothing to do with it. And I just like to know how many cold cases they've solved. Oh, wait, none. Oh, that's right. Yeah, your comment means a lot to me. So it's funny how everybody becomes an expert, when they look at these things, and they can criticize, professionals' work. It always boggles my mind. Joanne Dunham, her missing, I don't know what it was, let's just say 20 days of school, and 18 of those days, and those numbers aren't factual, but I'm just giving a reference. It's something like that. She missed 20 days, and let's say 18 days was on a Tuesday. Well, that's important. That can't be overlooked. Okay? Something is going on a Tuesday. So when you do develop your suspects, you need to start looking at their work schedule, because I thought that in this case it was an older man, probably a married man, who she was meeting and may have been pregnant too, or whatever it was. Look on Tuesdays. Your suspect is going to have something on Tuesdays that is different than his rest of his work week. Cheri Jo Bates, the handprints. If you watch Hunt for the Zodiac, they cut all this out. But everybody was, in shock and awe when I discovered it. And to me, it was plain as day. The cameraman was up top. Oh my God, how did they miss this? There were handprints, plain as day, at the bottom of her capri pants. Everybody saw it once I pointed it out. Obviously, we took pictures of it and stuff. To me, she was dragged. Whether she was crawling away. Now, does that change my opinion as to, whether she was being abducted, whether it was the boyfriend, as police theorized? No, in that particular case, it really doesn't. But it was something that was overlooked. So all 5 of those cases, there was something that was overlooked. And I think you catch those things without going to crazy town, like I said. You just have to meticulously go through it until you catch it. You may not get it the first or second time, and that's why it's important to read police reports and such over and over again. Brenda Condon case again, that beer bottle, I missed it. But then, when I went back through, okay, now I see it. Now it's starting to make sense. Now I couple that with this, and this. It points to a single offender, and the single offender being Ron. That's how that works. So, I just feel that it's important to be able to meticulously go through those things. You have to be careful, again, about not going to Crazy Town. Listen, I visited Crazy Town, okay? I've never taken up residency there, okay? But I've been there, and I've seen the inhabitants, and I've seen the villages that have been created in Crazy Town. And the one thing that's in common with everybody that lives in Crazy Town is the internet, believe it or not. You know, even so-called professionals, I guess. There's this female, quote-unquote, criminal profiler who, she's not credible. But people think that she is for whatever reason. Listen, people gravitate to people for various reasons. Hey, she reminds me of my grandmother, my crazy grandmother, whatever it is. But when you talk to true professionals, you can weed out who's credible and who isn't. What she once told me, and this was this is right when I really started getting into the field, that cold cases were a waste of time. Yeah. And I was like, really? And I screenshotted that because it bugged me. Because at the time, I thought she was a professional. You know, she had been on TV, a bunch of television appearances. And I realized just by that statement, she wasn't. You know, she wasn't credible. She's crazy. Why would you say that? So it just goes to show you, number one, just because someone's on TV doesn't mean they're credible. Just because they wrote a book doesn't mean they're credible. Now, both of those things apply to me. I've been on TV a bunch. And I've written a bunch of books. Right? Because of that, it doesn't mean I'm credible and you should believe everything I say. But maybe look into their past, their background, what they've done in life, their resume, cases they've worked. And if you really just sit and listen to somebody talk for about 15 minutes, you can get a good grasp on whether they're believable or they're credible. These amateur detectives, some of which have gained like internet fame, that's never done anything other than work at a 7-Eleven their whole life, but then they create a group page about a famous murder. Then all of a sudden people think they're an expert. Boggles my mind. And then the worst part is the media, television shows, instead of reaching out to the detectives or the family, they reach out to these internet group holders and treat them as experts on the case. That's how lazy as a society we become. Well, let's just get on and Google Cheri murders. Oh, this came up? Well, let's reach out and see and talk to them. And then everything that they say is gospel. They've never worked a case in their life. You know? It would be like taking me. Hey, I watch a lot of football. How about on the first week of the regular season, me and Mike Tomlin, for the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, we'll switch places because, listen, I sit on my couch and I yell, well, why are you passing the ball 4 yards every play? Go downfield. Run the ball more. I'm an expert. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So if I switch places with Mike Tomlin, do you think that I would be able to call the plays? No, you think that you can. Or when you're watching a UFC fight and you're thinking, man, how's he tired already? I would never give up. If your mindset is like that and you think that you're better than these professionals, you need your brain examined. Okay? So that just it always irritates me and frustrates me that people do that. And the internet has just made it 100 times worse. And then the majority of people think that they're experts because of what they spout back. It's just nonsense. It really is. Anyways, I just wanted to point those 5 cases out. And when you look at cases, how you might miss something, and it's okay. Just go back and then incorporate it. Let it make sense to you. The Jennifer Hill case, it wasn't that, I missed anything on that. The police, the troopers, did a tremendous job in solving that case. And later I was able to get the DNA to shore that up, so there wasn't any questions. Listen, people will still say, I planted that DNA. At least that's what he says. And his minions who believe that, the offenders. But in reality, it certainly isn't true. But you always have 2 sides, right? Always. But when I went back through and saw, hey, the motive, was it sexually motivated? Yes. Okay. It was, but his anger, he wasn't a serial sexual predator, but his anger, coupled with it being a sexually motivated situation, is what made was the motive. So cold cases and cases in general are they're more detailed. There's more involved than what the general public, amateur investigators think. There's a lot more to it. You don't always have to have motive, but motive is important. You don't have to prove motive at a jury trial or a bench trial, but it's important. I'm not going to get on my rant about amateur detectives. I think what this stemmed from is I turned comments back on. And I don't read them every day, but every couple of days, I'll get on and maybe flip through and read some. And I don't know. It's just everybody has an opinion. But that's okay. You're allowed to have an opinion, but don't make it gospel. You know what I mean? I can have an opinion that the Steelers need to run the football more. That's just my opinion. I don't know the nitty gritty, the ins and the outs of the Steelers football team or professional football in general. Just like the people that are leaving those comments about cold cases. They have a generalized opinion, but they don't know the ins and outs of investigations. They think they do. Just like I think that I have the ins and outs on how to run electricity. But in reality, I don't. So I don't mess with it much. I stay in my lane, okay? I'll change the fuse. I can run a wire, but when it comes to receptacles and coming back, I'll leave that to the professionals. And that's what amateur detectives should do. It's okay to have an opinion, back that opinion up, But like I always said before, I would never disagree with professionals in a field. I just don't. Whether it's veterinarians, whether it's medical doctors, or when I was younger, cold case investigators, that's me. I think that's a lot of it is respect. And then it's just the way that I am. Society has changed so much anymore that I don't even recognize this stuff anymore, the society and the slang and the pronouns and the internet. So helpful, the internet, but it's such a sewage as well. So I try to stay off it as much as I can. But you do you, okay? I'm not telling you what to do. So that's my thoughts for today on some cases and being able. Those were just 5 cases that I picked off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a lot more where I see something that somebody else, the investigators, somebody else probably saw, but they just didn't tie it in to how important it is to the case. The Brenda Condon case is a perfect example. And the pineapple in the JonBenét Ramsey case, you know, very important to me to figuring out the case. It's like I told a news reporter the other day, and this goes for any vocation, but if you have a passion for something, you have a little bit of talent as well, not only will you be successful, but you can be great. Okay? So take that advice today. On this Sunday morning, take that advice. You can be not only successful, but you can be great. Just have that passion, have a little bit of talent. And maybe my talent is being able to see some things that other people miss, or, say, hey, it's not important, when in actuality, it's very important. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching this little episode. I'm not sure what comes next. I was taking a little break. I'm still taking a little break before I dive back into any big cases. And we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. Mains out.